comment in the recap. Okay, here we go. 4:30 p.m. That's the cue. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Grant Smith Ellis. If you missed day 19, it's maybe day 20. It's somewhere in there. It's day 19 or day 20, depending if you count the skip day of the John O'Keefe and Karen Reed retrial. I have the recap for you right now, ladies and gentlemen. It started big out the gate. Well, it actually started with Bob Alessi being quite boring and not really getting anywhere. But Hank Brennan was furious after yesterday's nonsense by Bob Alessi trying to present an out-of-context LinkedIn profile from 10 years ago from an expert witness who was testifying about key data from Karen Reed's Lexus showing a three-point turn at 12:23, 12:24 a.m., and then a backup event at 12:31 a.m. into 12:32 a.m., which is the exact moment that John O'Keefe's phone stopped moving for the last time. But ladies and gentlemen, somehow, as if that somehow were not big enough. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, wait until you see what Hank Brennan decided to finish the day with. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it was one of those moments. You can see the preview there. We're going to take a look at the video of Karen leaving court. I'm literally going to upload it in real time, the video of Karen leaving court and then reacting to these Karen cam clips. And that is how we are going to start our recap. Now, the testimony from expert Shannon Burgess, ladies and gentlemen, is just the first of 4 witnesses from Aperture, experts for Hank Brennan, ladies and gentlemen. And my word, things look like they are about to start heating up in the John O'Keefe and Karen Reed trial. It has been heating up for a few days. There's no question about it, but we are now very much getting to a point where things are getting really rocky for the defense. The Lexus GPS, the Lexus trigger events from the infotainment and black box EDR chips that were never, for some reason, never extracted by Karen's ex in the first trial. For some reason, ladies and gentlemen, the key data just missing. And now, ladies and gentlemen, clip of Karen leaving equals John Hall. I don't know if he spells it. I think it's actually Jon Hall, but I'll fix that in a second. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you the clips we are going to watch, the clips that Hank Brennan dropped of Karen are so devastating in light of the testimony about Karen's Lexus SUV data that it may as well have sunk the entire good ship, free Karen Reed. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, the humanity, the humanity of the collapse. We're here to watch it. And the video is uploading. And while we're waiting for that video to upload, and as you stare at Alan Jackson being an Alan Jackson, what I will show you is we can see moments from the early start of the day, folks. At the very beginning of the the very most important moment of the testimony was Hank Brennan's initial redirect. It took Hank Brennan 13 minutes, towel friends, 13 minutes to just obliterate and eviscerate and shock and induce shock and awe in the Karen Reed defense. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Brennan immediately began the day by pointing out the way in which the Reed defense had taken out of context a LinkedIn profile from 10 years ago, wherein a witness had selected that their expected graduation date would be a certain time from undergrad for college. They were doing a college degree after being a professional with multiple certifications. And then Brennan just proceeded to take out a vengeful, righteous anger on Bob Alessi in a way that only a lawyer who is beyond frustrated with another lawyer and their blatant disregard for the ground rules of the game would do. Hank Brennan was absolutely incredulous at Bob Alessi for some of the tactics used on direct, and we are going to take a look at that as well. We're going to take a look, on cross by Bob Alessi. We're going to take a look at the redirect, and then we're going to actually see right now in the next 20 seconds or so the video of Karen Reed leaving court, which is then followed immediately by a synced video of the Karen clips where Karen admitted to knowing John was dead at 12:25 or 12:30, which is the very moment the data that Hank Brennan had just presented to jurors showed Karen's car backing up and John's phone moving for the last time. Ladies and gentlemen, to say it was absolutely devastating for the Karen Reed defense is an understatement, and you can now see coming up on your screen right now, Towel literally in real time as we were talking during this overview. We made this clip earlier, the combination clip, and now I have it to show you for our towel recap. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I am an efficient towel. Let us watch.
Hey, very good. How are y'all? Any reaction to the clips, Karen, that are being played?
No.
How about Shannon Burgess? What do you think about his performance? They had to get him on here, so how do you think he did?
Incredible, or uncredible, I'm not sure what the word is.
So we approach from the north, we actually missed the turn, and John says to me, we just passed it, it's back there, it's on my left. I said, all right, so I pull nose into a driveway and back out onto the street, which I now own as Cedar Crest, and then come from the north onto Fairview.
Like the next play, clip 25.
As I come close to the sides of the garage truck, and then you hear the car go off, and then you hear the slight ding, ding, ding as I open the door, shut the door. I had high heels on that night. You hear me walk in, go into the stairs up into the kitchen, shut the door. You hear me walk in the kitchen. It's like a full minute long. That's at 12:41.
And finally, clip 24.
I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the earlier morning of January 29th.
Thank you.
Whoa. Whoa, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Whoa, indeed. It was huge. I told you it was huge. It was a big, big deal. Karen Reed has just destroyed her entire case. I'm telling you, folks, that's a very, very big deal. Now, let's take a look at how the day began, though. I mean, first of all, I can't believe Karen Reed admitted that. I cannot believe she admitted that, but it's even worse when you watch the context it played out in. Jurors had just seen the data about John's foot to the backup event at that exact time. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to it.
Traveling at 12:32:12.
It would have been traveling in reverse.
And at 12:32:12, do you know how fast the defendant's Lexus was traveling at 12:32:12?
I do not recall.
Mr. O'Keefe's last user interaction with his phone at 12:32:09. Where does that fall within the 10-second window that was captured by the text stream data?
Sure, so that falls within that 8-second window. So again, the text stream event ends somewhere between 12:32:04 and 12:32:12. But that does not represent that the backing maneuver has ended. Just the recorded data has ended.
And in your review, do you have, around this time, any other movement of Mr. O'Keefe's phone after 12:32:16?
I did not look at that specifically. It was my understanding that Mr. Whiffen looked at that.
To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, Did both these events, the last user interaction and the window captured on the reconciled data for the text stream, happen around the same time?
Yes, they did.
I have no further questions.
Devastating. And ladies and gentlemen, now we'll look at how the day started. It was bad enough that the clip of Karen saying she knew John was dead at 12:25 or 12:30 was right after that. But ladies and gentlemen, it took Hank Brennan 13 minutes to ruin Bob Alessi's nonsensical strategy on Cross yesterday. Let's watch it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Do you know what a sequestration order is?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
So it would be an order to not view any testimony of a trial, is my general understanding.
Does that mean that you can't watch any of it on television?
Correct.
Do you understand whether or not you can speak to attorneys about testimony? Is that precluded as well?
I'm not aware either way.
Has anybody ever spoken to you about any testimony that occurred in this trial before you testified?
No, they have not.
Have I ever discussed, intimated, or suggested any information whatsoever to you about arguments, testimony, or anything about this case as it's ongoing?
No, you have not.
Do you follow the rules, sir?
Yes, I do.
Have you followed them in this case?
Yes, I have.
When you gave your opinions and you've testified, do you have any information or knowledge about this trial as it actually occurred until the point when you testified?
No, I do not.
You were asked some questions about your CV. A CV is a resume?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you were asked about a LinkedIn account.
Yes, I was.
Is your LinkedIn account different than your CV?
Yes, it is.
And in this case, when did you learn that your LinkedIn account was wrong or had not been updated? When was the first time you learned that?
That was yesterday.
When you started your LinkedIn account, do you remember when it was you set it up?
I do not. It would have been maybe 10 years ago or more.
Do you routinely update your LinkedIn account?
No, I do not.
When you set up your LinkedIn account, the section where it asks for education, whether graduated or ongoing, do you remember filling out that section?
I don't particularly remember filling it out, but obviously I did at some point.
When you were asked about Aperture's website, how many experts are associated with Aperture?
I could give you a rough number between 80 and 100.
How many offices?
15 or so.
Are you involved in the website design or content?
No, I'm not.
Do you know if Aperture gets the information from their website directly from LinkedIn?
I don't know where they get all of their information from.
Did you ever weigh in or develop your information that was on Aperture's website?
No, not on the website.
You do provide CVs before you come to court, don't you?
Yes, I do.
In this case, you were asked by the defense, when you provide your CV, do you understand that it's going to be reviewed by whoever requests it, the Commonwealth or the defense?
Yes, I do.
And that it will be shared with both sides in the court?
Yes.
In fact, the first time you provided a CV in this case, was it October 11, 2014?
Objection, Your Honor. So the leading nature sustained.
Do you remember the first time you provided a CV in this case?
It would have been around October.
What year?
2024, sorry.
And when you provided that, was it as an exhibit to something?
Yes, if I recall, it was as an exhibit to the initial protocol that I sent out.
And when you submitted that CV, did you appreciate whether or not it would be part of a court filing in public?
Yes, I did.
If I could have exhibit 183, please. 183. You could enlarge the top section. Right there is good. And sir, when you provided this CV to be filed with the court and made public, did you indicate that you had obtained a bachelor degree?
No, I did not.
Why did you put currently pursuing?
Because I am currently pursuing a bachelor's degree.
And did you understand your CV was received by the defense and they knew this?
Yes, I do understand that.
Subsequently, you were asked to provide an updated CV in April 2025?
Yes, I was.
Did you do that?
I did.
And can we have Exhibit 184? Did you further appreciate this would be provided to both the court and the defense?
Yes, I did.
Did you represent to the defense that your education included earning a bachelor degree?
No, I did not.
You've testified in, you can take that down, please. You've testified in many other cases
I have, yes.
in courts around the country.
Yes, I have.
And when you've testified in other courts around the country, do you know whether there are transcripts of your actual testimony?
Yes, I believe there are.
Have you ever represented in any court that you achieved your bachelor's degree?
No, I have not.
Have you ever inflated your qualifications in a court?
No, I have not.
When I asked you about some of your background, you told us that you had certificates in Celebrite and Axiom. I didn't go through all of the qualifications and all of the accomplishments you had, did I?
No, you did not.
Do you have professional certifications, GIAC, Advanced Smartphone Forensic Analysis?
Yes, I do.
Do you have professional certification from CCME, Celebrite Certified Mobile Examiner?
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained.
Do you have professional certifications as a Magnet Certified Forensic Examiner?
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained for the same reason.
I'm sorry?
Sustained for the same reason.
Do you have a number of certificates that I did not ask you about?
Yes, you did.
Can you share some of those with us?
Sure. So one of those is going to be GIAC, Advanced Smartphone Forensics. So that's going to be Global Information Assurance certification. And that is basically a 40-hour class or 48-hour class with a test at the end to get that certification. There's also a Celebrite Certified Mobile Examiner certification. That is specifically to, kind of demonstrate your knowledge of the Celebrite software, as well as Magnet Forensics certifications, again, for their software specifically.
Any certifications regarding computer hacking?
What was that last part? Sorry.
Any certifications regarding computer hacking?
No, not currently.
Okay. Did you also take any classes regarding crash data or BOSH?
Yes, I have.
What do you have for certificates in that arena?
So those certifications would be Crash Data Retrieval Technician and Crash Data Retrieval Analyst. So those courses would be around acquiring and analyzing crash data from airbag control modules.
You mentioned that you had over 700 hours
Yes, I do.
of classes and certification.
Yes, that's of classes and classes and seminars or conferences, specifically in digital forensics or vehicle forensics.
Do you need a bachelor's degree to be competent and achieve in this area?
No, I do not.
Is a bachelor's degree a prerequisite of success in a particular field?
No, it is not.
You ever hear of Bill Gates,
Yes.
Stephen Jobs,
Yes.
Oprah Winfrey?
Sustained.
You had become engaged in this case in October 2024?
Correct.
And when you first became engaged, you had a chance to look at photographs and some data?
Yes, I did.
At that point, you hadn't had a chance. Did you have had you had a chance to actually inspect any of the physical property?
No, I had not.
Did you have an understanding that somebody else did?
Yes, I did.
Who?
Miss Gaffney and a number of other people with the MSP.
attended some type of procedure?
Correct.
And do you know who led the actual procedure?
As far as I'm aware, it would have been Miss Gaffney.
The defense expert?
Correct.
You filed a protocol. What was the purpose in October when you first got involved with filing a protocol?
Sure. So the first purpose of the protocol was just to address the fact that we were missing data that we expected, and address a potential solution to gather more data.
Without having looked at the physical property, the actual boards, how did you conclude simply on data and photographs that there was missing data?
Sure. So that would be reviewing the initial data that was provided, and not seeing user data like I would expect. And that's because there's a number of different chips that are on a circuit board for an infotainment or telematics or any other module. And there's a number of different data bearing chips. The purpose of those chips will vary. Some chips' main purpose is to store user data. Some chips' main purpose is to store.
Still watching the recap. We are moving on to the next section of the redirect. So now Hank Brennan has just humiliated Bob Alessi's nonsensical cross yesterday, rehabilitated the witness, and now Brennan immediately moves into why did Karen Reed's expert fail to get the crucial data from Reed's Lexus chips that would show these backup events and the other relevant data that the jury now knows about. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it was glorious. Let's keep watching.
Store software or firmware. So if you're gathering, acquiring data from chips that only have software and firmware, then you would not expect or you would not see user data within those chips.
When you made that analysis and concluded that there was missing data, had there been any report provided by Ms. Gaffney suggesting there was missing data?
No, there was not.
Had there been any analysis or opinion alerting that there was missing data?
No, there was not.
Was there anything to indicate that the person who did this test missed data at that point?
No, not at that point.
When you decided...
As the recap, honorary towel spouse Mandy has gotten a very sad phone call. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure to reach out, give your condolences to honorary towel spouse Mandy. Honorary towel spouse Mandy, you are among your friends, and you don't have to tell us what happened, but even in the middle of the recap, we will pause and we will let you know we are here for you, dear friend. You are surrounded by a fluffy towel universe. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to the recap.
Decided to write a protocol so you could actually look at the boards and do an analysis. Did you put that protocol in writing?
Yes, I did.
And do you remember if that was around October 10th, 2024?
That sounds familiar. Yes.
Now, when you were cross-examined, the attorney asked you if you knew what the word mendacity meant. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And you didn't know. Do you now know that means to lie or be untruthful?
Sustained.
He didn't ask you a question. He just asked you if you knew what the word was. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you remember he also, on cross-examination, suggested that when you had your mistake about megabytes, megabits, it was the defense expert that alerted you to that mistake? Do you remember that suggestion by the defense?
Yes, I do.
Did they ever show you the documents so you could see the chronology?
No, they did not.
Okay. You wrote a report on October 10, 2024. Did you then write another report, a supplemental protocol?
Yes, so I did write that initial protocol and then a supplemental protocol.
Was that on October 17, 2024?
That sounds about right.
When you wrote that a week later, at that point, had you realized your mistake?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Why did you...
Sidebar. Ladies and gentlemen, you could tell the defense they were getting antsy, and they were right to get antsy. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it was Karen Reed's own expert who misread the data. Ladies and gentlemen, and now after Hank Brennan comes back from sidebar, we actually see Brennan take the witness through decimating Reed's expert who hasn't even testified yet. Oh, Brennan pulled a brilliant magisterial moment out of the hat, and the Towel friends are gonna get to watch it again during recap of day 19/day 20. We're going with day 20 because when a day of trial doesn't happen, that still goes in the record books as continued at the joint request of the parties. And then, ladies and gentlemen, this means we're on day 20. So let's continue.
When you realized your error, what did you do?
So I intended to correct it with a supplemental protocol.
When you corrected it with the supplemental protocol, do you remember what date that was?
Not specifically, I do not.
Okay. If I showed you your report, would that help your memory?
Yes, it would.
May I approach?
Yes.
Please don't read this, just look at it, and if it refreshes your memory, let me know, and then I'll ask you a question.
Yes, it does.
When did you correct your error with the supplemental protocol?
That was on October 17th, 2024.
And do you remember the date that you first received any information from Mr. DeSorga?
No, I do not
Do you
specifically.
remember the date when Mr. DeSorga's information was first filed?
No, I do not.
And do you know if whether it was after your October 17th supplementary report?
Not specifically, but I believe it was after.
Just so everyone understands, DeSorda is the defense expert who hasn't testified yet. Reed's expert got the window wrong of the backup event and the time John's phone stopped moving. And so now we're gonna watch Burgess critique Reed's expert and just absolutely decimate Reed's expert who hasn't even testified yet. It's glorious.
And so when it was suggested that you had to be schooled or advised by Mr. DeSorga, was that accurate?
Objection, Your Honor.
Word it differently. Word it differently.
The claim that was made that you weren't aware until someone advised you of your error, was that true?
No, that was untrue.
When you realized there was an error and put it in a report, were you ever dissuaded from publicly alerting all the parties of your mistake?
No.
Do you leave stuff in or out of a report if you find it helpful or hurtful to one side?
No, I do not.
Have you, in this effort that you've made in this case, have you always been encouraged to provide all information, regardless of what it is?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
Yes, I have.
And who's encouraged you to always provide all information, regardless of what it says?
No one. So my job is to assist the jury. So the jury, assisting the jury means presenting all the information.
Have you ever been discouraged by me?
No, I have not.
When you looked at the photographs and you looked at the boards without actually touching them, how long did it take you to figure out that there was some other vehicle for data?
Sure. So it took a few times to look at the photographs before I identified the micro SD card slot.
You were asked whether it's important to be accurate and reliable. Is it in this field?
Yes, it is.
And if data is not found on the chips, is it a standard practice to look elsewhere?
Yes, that would be a standard practice.
Was that done in this case before you became involved?
No, it was not.
Who was the first person to identify where the missing information was?
Myself.
What happens if you miss information because you don't see it?
So if you miss information, that's information that won't help in the analysis.
In this case, the information on the SD card that you found, how important was that to this entire analysis?
It was important to timestamp certain events.
Without that information in the SD card, would you have been able to so accurately timestamp certain events?
No, not so accurately.
Before you were involved, was that information, that very important information for timestamps, was that available for either side?
No, it was not.
Is it now?
It is.
You were asked about Burla. When Burla did not have updated software to simply plug into a car and download the information, what process would have to be used?
Sure. So best practice for vehicle forensics is if the module or a vehicle is not supported by a forensic tool, would be to remove that module, or let me start over, manually document the screens on that infotainment module if it's available and it can be powered up. But then also going through disassembling the module, identifying any type of chips or SD cards that may hold data, and acquiring that data.
Is that called a chip-off process?
It is called a chip-off process.
Does it describe the process well, chip-off?
Yes, it does.
Since Ms. Gaffney did the original analysis and did that chip-off, has the software updated?
Yes.
Is that the Burla software?
No, I'm sorry. So she has not done a updated analysis with the Burla software.
But has the Burla software itself updated?
So the Burla software itself has updated, but it is limited to, again, plugging in a USB into the infotainment module while it's in the car running.
Does the updates in Burla software have anything to do with the SD card?
No, it does not.
Why not?
Because, again, they're going a different route to acquire data. And they are acquiring a limited amount of data through what's called diagnostic logs. So if you think of diagnostic logs, your radio unit is keeping logs of any time things happen on the radio for manufacturer purposes. So Burla is taking those logs and they can interpret some of those logs. They are not, acquiring all the data.
All right, towel friends, we had a request. We had a request from a new towel friend, Lefties Gaming Lulls. We had a request for a contextual explanation of what we're talking about. For those wondering, this is a recap of day 19/day 20 of the John O'Keefe and Karen Reed retrial. We are now listening to the redirect of Shannon Burgess, conducted by prosecutor Hank Brennan. And ladies and gentlemen, this specific part of the redirect has to do with what is involved in a chip-off of a Lexus board and what data can be obtained from different sections of the Lexus board. And then this is crucially important, this foundational understanding. You need to listen to this expert witness who is much smarter than me or even Murder by Maestro, although Murder by Maestro speaks in hexadecimal. Did you know Murder by Maestro is 0001? Let's see, 0101 years old in binary. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is true. Murder by Maestro. It actually might be 0001 years old in binary, but he literally speaks binary, and this witness is smarter than both of us. Murder by Maestro may actually speak hexadecimal, which is even more complicated than binary because it involves numbers and letters. Oh, goodness, ladies and gentlemen. But needless to say, this is crucially foundationally important testimony because it's technically on redirect, so we already heard this yesterday, and it's very nerdy. And the Aperture witnesses who are coming later, this is the first of 4 witnesses from a company called Aperture. This is testimony for nerds, and I mean that in an endearing way because I like data and I understand how computers think, and I am a nerd in some sense, just like all of you. We're towel nerds, and this witness is a nerd, and Bob Alessi the nerd. Hank Brennan's a little bit of a nerd. It's okay, being a nerd is a virtue. Murder by Maestro is evolving into a quantum towel. I'm an atomic towel. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, this specific part of the recap is about the nature of Karen Reed's Lexus board, and we're going to learn about how Karen Reed's expert, first of all, totally misinterpreted data, one of her experts who hasn't testified yet. And then the other expert, Maggie Gaffney from the first trial, didn't do a proper chip-off. Conveniently, the chip-off that got messed up meant that during the first trial, key parts of Karen Reed's Lexus data weren't available. And then all of a sudden, Hank Brennan's expert during the second trial figures out how to do the chip-off, but it's incredibly complicated because you can't just take this data off and plug it into a computer. You have to read it off like a PCB board using a chip reader. It involves like desoldering, I'm sure. It's very complicated. Ladies and gentlemen, this is foundational nerdy testimony, but oh my goodness, is it important. If you understand what the witness is talking about, if you understand the nature of how these boards work, what you're really hearing is testimony about how Karen Reed's expert during the first trial failed to do an appropriate chip off. Ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, that's the layperson's interpretation. And if, yes, nerds are awesome. Allie 90211 has seconded the motion. Nerds are wonderful. Yes, Maggie Gaffney is a defense witness from the first trial who did the chip off. That was so poor that it only got 2.4 gigs of 8 gigs of data. We now know that 2 specific boards of that chip off were not done. The infotainment system, which has the backup event, which is the key data in all of this at around 12:32:04 or so a.m., right before John's phone stopped moving at 12:32 and 16 seconds or 09 seconds, depending on which clock you're using, a.m. that morning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Maggie Gaffney also failed to remove an SD card, which is a fundamental component of the chip-off. And although that SD card didn't have as much valuable data as the Lexus EDR black box and the Lexus infotainment system chip that were also not extracted during the first trial, it is still a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. And I am providing the commentary that Little Towels have requested, whether you're a new towel, an old towel friend, whether you are a wonderful towel friend, or you have different views, or you're just a towel in general. I will pause commentary and I will pause the video and explain to you what's going on if you so ask, and I happen to catch it while amongst doing other things. Now let's go back to this witness talking about why taking that data off the PCB board and why Karen Reed's expert screwing it up was such a big deal.
That is on the SD card itself.
You have drafted a number of reports in this case?
I have, yes.
Regarding the chip-off process, did Ms. Gaffney ever write a report?
No, not that I'm aware of.
When you wrote reports in this case, do you expect for them to be shared?
Yes, I do.
When other experts, like, for example, Mr. DeSorga writes a report, do you expect to have a copy and review it?
Yes.
Sustained.
What is the standard practice when there are reports from different experts regarding the same subject matter?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Is there a standard practice regarding reviewing reports from similar experts in similar subject matter?
Sure. So anytime a report is written by an expert, that report would be provided and shared with opposing experts.
Reports, do they always come at the same time in a case?
No, they do not.
When you wrote your reports, how would you provide them so they could be disseminated?
Sure. So that I would typically provide them to the client or the attorney that hired me, and then that would be disseminated from there.
Did you have an opportunity to receive Mr. DeSorga's March 5th, 2025 PowerPoint?
Yes, I did.
Were you provided that by me, the Commonwealth?
Yes, I was.
And were you asked or given any direction on what you could or should do?
No, I was not.
Were you ever asked to reach any particular result?
No, I was not.
Were you ever asked to avoid anything?
No, I was not.
What did you see your role as when you receive a report from another expert like Mr. DeSorga?
Sure. So when I receive a report, I would typically review it and then make a decision if it's better to address any issues in that report through testimony or address those with a supplemental report.
And in that analysis, do you follow your own discretion or do you follow directions of the client?
No, I would follow my own discretion.
Did you ever receive any direction on what you should and shouldn't do regarding considering Mr. DeSorga's report?
No, I did not.
When you looked at Mr. DeSorga's report, did you have concerns about his report?
I did, yes.
I want to talk about his report in detail. Before we get there, share with us what your general concerns were about Mr. DeSorga's report when you reviewed the whole report.
Sure. So what Mr. DeSorga does is take a couple different adjustment methods to attempt to adjust the clock from the Lexus with the iPhone. But what he does is takes a lot of methods or data points that are not applicable to the time that we're interested in.
What do you mean? Can you explain with a little more specificity what he does?
Sure. So if you think about it, your clock is constantly, changing as far as it syncs up with other GPS satellites or network time servers, and it's updating constantly. So a clock variance between two devices may be different at, say, 12 o'clock in the day versus 1 o'clock in the day. So best practice is to choose an event that is nearest to your time in question, so you have the most appropriate adjustment for that clock variance.
Mr. DeSorga's analysis, did he choose the event most closely tied to the backing up event?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
The backing up event, are you familiar with that time frame?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Was Mr. Sorga's analysis based on information most closely related to that event?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
What information did Mrs. DeSorga choose to use for that analysis relative to the backing up event?
Sure. So he chose a couple things. That's going to be call logs that happened on both devices or that was recorded on both devices, as well as a GPS data point, which was incorrectly identified as being near that or encompassing that 3-point turn. So what we did is did a more thorough analysis of that 3-point turn event when it occurred within the iPhone data, and then compared that and adjusted with the Lexus.
Explain to us your concern about using call logs.
Sure. So there's a number of call logs that you saw earlier that were recorded by the phone and the Lexus. The one thing you'll notice, and it's hard to kind of go back to it without the graph, but the calls that happened between 1 and 5 o'clock that morning actually happened when the car was powered off. We know that based on the power on and power off events. So those timestamps that are recorded with that 2-second and 1-second offset is actually from Mrs. Reed's iPhone as she gets back in the vehicle and her phone connects up and syncs back up. So the 8-second and the 16 or 21-second offset are the only offsets that we have to compare to calls.
Was that a concern?
It was a concern.
Why?
Because if you're using the 1 and 2 second offsets, that could be misleading because it's not actually comparing the Lexus clock with the iPhone clock from Mr. O'Keefe.
What's it doing?
It's comparing the Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone clock with Mrs. Reed's iPhone clock.
What other concerns?
Sure. So the other concern was a GPS point known as GPS 154, which, if you remember, yesterday we talked about a little bit. So that was misidentified as being the end or towards the end of that 3-point turn. But when we look closer at all the location data, we can see that that actually occurs between 12:23:59 and I believe it was 12:24:07.
Let me ask you some questions about what compelled you to look at the 3-point turn and synchronize the clocks. Were you aware of Mr. Whiffin's report where he offered that the last user interaction on Mr. Whiffin's phone was 12:32:09?
Objection, Your Honor.
No. You were asked, did you consider Mr. Whiffin's report where there was a last user interaction of 12:32:09 by the user?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
You were asked if you considered that. Did you know that information?
I did know that information was available and existed, but I did not use that in my analysis for the clock synchronization.
Did that have any part of your motivation to do the clock synchronization?
No, it did not.
Were you attempting to match the synchronization with any of this other information that exists in data?
No, I was not.
You were also asked if you were aware of Mr. O'Keefe's phone that at 12:32:16 it ended its movement.
Yes, I was aware of that, yes.
Did that in any way affect your interest or your decision to synchronize the clocks?
No, it did not. So my primary focus and to adjust the clocks was because I thought the PowerPoint slides by Mr. DeSogra were misleading.
When you were shown Exhibit 190, can we have 190, please? You were shown this chart. Was this the entirety of Mr. DeSorga's report?
No, it was not.
Was there text information offered by Mr. DeSorga to give his position or explanation of this?
Yes, there was.
Is that included in this exhibit?
No, it's not.
Did you get a chance to read Mr. DeSorga's report, including the actual text explaining his analysis and process leading to this chart?
Yes, I was.
Did you look at Mr. DeSorga's entire report?
Yes, I did.
I move to introduce Mr. DeSorga's report.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. So this was triple D for identification. That would be the next exhibit.
Exhibit 191.
You said as a result of Mr. DeSorga's report, you were concerned, so that compelled you to do your analysis that resulted in your May 8th report?
Correct.
I want you to take us through Mr. DeSorga's report and explain to the jury what concerned you about his analysis.
Sure.
With the court's permission, I'd like to put this page 1 of this report. Is this the front cover of Mr. DeSorga's March 5th, 2025 report?
Yes, it is.
Turn to page 2, please. What do you recognize this slide or photograph coming from?
Sure. So this slide is coming from Dr. Welcher's overall PowerPoint slides.
When you first saw this slide, where did you first see, which source did you first see this through?
Through Mr. DeSogra's PowerPoint.
Well, Dr. Welcher works at Aperture, doesn't he?
He does, yes.
Did you know he was working on this case?
Yes, I did.
Was he providing you his PowerPoint or slides before this point?
No, he was not.
When you first saw this slide, did you see information about the timing of the text stream event, which was the backing maneuver?
Yes, I did.
And what time did that show?
Can we blow it up just so I don't get the time
Please.
wrong?
Up, please. I'm sorry. Up. There we go. Thank you, Ms. Gilman.
Sure. So that's got the text stream event ending at 12:31:43.
These text stream events that are captured, do you know how long of the event is captured? How many seconds?
Yes. So approximately 5 seconds before the trigger threshold is met and 5 seconds after.
When this information that you reviewed in Mr. DeSorga's report, do you know what clock is used to identify the 12:31:38 to 12:31:43?
Yes, I do.
And what clock is that?
So that's a combination of the Lexus clock that's coming from the infotainment center, as well as the running timer that we discussed yesterday that's coming from the airbag module itself.
Is the source of that time important?
Yes, it is.
If you compare time from a different clock with time from a different clock and don't synchronize the two, does that lead you to an accurate result?
No, it does not.
When you were answering questions, you repeatedly were saying, according to the Lexus clock. Why were you offering that qualification repeatedly? One moment, please.
Sure.
Why were you offering that qualification repeatedly?
Sure. So to make sure that the jury understood that that timestamp was coming from the Lexus itself and was not an adjusted timestamp to Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
Could you scroll down, please, Ms. Gilman? Up a little bit, please. Thank you. The 3209, what did you understand that information to be?
Sure. So that is information I understood to be the last device lock recorded on Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
And what clock did you understand that time came from?
That would come from Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone clock.
If you reconciled his iPhone clock information, or if you compared it without reconciling to the Lexus information, what's the danger in doing that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Is there any danger in doing that?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
Is there any danger in comparing two times if you don't consider the clocks that they came from?
Yes, there is. So you could essentially be, in inaccurate time for when that event actually occurred.
If you could just scroll down to the bottom so we could see the rest of that. You mentioned the word variance yesterday during your direct examination. I'm going to ask you to look at that box that has the green around it. Is that an example of variance?
Yes, that is an example of variance.
Go tell friends. There you go. I thought we had much more to go. We didn't. I was like, oh, there's more testimony. I'll just sit here and enjoy it. I'm so used to just watching hours and hours of testimony, but nope. That was the end, ladies and gentlemen. That was one of the more important parts. Now I have the most devastating part. This was the end of the redirect. It was so bad for Karen Reed. Oh, look at how Burgess ended the redirect. Look at that backup, folks. Look at the backup event. And then look at John O'Keefe's last movement. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it was devastating. My name's Grant Smith Ellis. Let's watch it. It's only 2 minutes. It all built up to this. The backup event right as John O'Keefe's phone stopped moving. And then we're going to watch the Karen clips again because God knows we love the Karen clips. And also, God bless Mandy Strong. Oh, no, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Mandy, I missed the comment. Oh, God bless you for being with your friend Mandy Strong. And your towel friends are here with you, and it means a lot to us that you shared that with us. And God bless you, dear friend. Oh. All right, let's listen to this testimony. It was a big moment, but also we are a fluffy, warm universe of towels here, and we pause recap sometimes to confront our comfort our towel friends, and also confront the reality of a world that will one day be defined by unconditional love and toleration. Let's listen.
Traveling at 12:32:12.
It would have been traveling in reverse.
And at 12:32:12, do you know how fast the defendant's Lexus was traveling at 12:32:12?
I do not recall.
Mr. O'Keefe's last user interaction with his phone at 12:32:09, where does that fall within the 10-second window that was captured by the text stream data?
Sure. So that falls within that 8-second window. So again, the text stream event ends somewhere between 12:32:04 and 12:32:12. But that does not represent that the backing maneuver has ended. Just the recorded data has ended.
And in your review, do you have, around this time, any other movement of Mr. O'Keefe's phone after 12:32:16?
I did not look at that specifically. It was my understanding that Mr. Whiffen looked at that.
To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, did both these events, the last user interaction and the window captured on the reconciled data for the text stream, happen around the same time?
Yes, they did.
I have no further questions.
Boom. That's how you end a redirect, ladies and gentlemen. Boom. That's how you end a redirect. That is how you end or redirect towel friends. And then you want to know how you make it even worse? Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you come through and you leave Karen Reed just absolutely speechless outside of court. Look at this. Watch the Karen clips, ladies and gentlemen. Watch Karen's reaction because the Karen clips had just played. Watch how Karen reacts in the 16-second clip, and then we go right into the Karen clips. Karen knew John O'Keefe was dead around 12:30 a.m. right as that vehicle data shows, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness, it was quite a moment. Let's watch.
Hey, very good. How are y'all? Any reaction to the clips, Karen, that are being played?
No.
How about Shannon Burgess? What do you think about his performance? They had to get him on here, so how do you think he did?
Incredible or uncredible. I'm not sure what the word is.
So the approach from the north, we actually missed the turn. And John says to me, it's fair, we just passed it. It's back there. It's on my left. I said, all right. So I pull nose into a driveway and back out onto the street, which I now own as Cedar Crest, and then come from the north onto Fairview.
Like the next play, clip 25.
At 12:41, I leave a voicemail to John where you can clearly, and this will probably be played on Monday, you can clearly hear me pull into John's garage. You can hear my car sensors beeping as I come close to the sides of the garage door. And then you hear the car go off, and then you hear the slight ding, ding, ding as I open the door, shut the door. I had high heels on that night. You hear me walk in, go into the stairs up into the kitchen, shut the door. You hear me walk in the kitchen. It's like a full minute long. That's at 12:41.
And finally, clip 24.
I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the early morning of January 29th.
Oh my word, folks. Oh my word, it's as bad as it could be, Karen Reed. Oh my word, towel friends, you saw it there. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, it's as bad as it could be. Wow, my name is Grant Smith Ellis. We're not ending the towel stream, ladies and gentlemen, but we are ending the recap. So if you enjoyed this recap of day 19/day 20 of the John O'Keefe and Karen Reed trial, you can watch more. You can find more of this content, youtube.com/@GrantSmithEllis. Going to end this clip. So it started about 4:25, ended about 5:25. We did an hour-long recap. Oh, towel friends, look how effective we are. Someone asked earlier, by the way, as we end this recap, why do we all call ourselves towels? Well, someone mocked me one time a year and a half ago or something. Some random account like Stoop Kid or something, might have been a Turtle Boy fan. He was like, Grant calls himself a towel. His pronouns are towel. And I was like, oh, my pronouns are towel? I'm just going to become a towel. And look at this. We birthed a legion of towels. It is a towel universe. Come join the chat. See all these wonderful human beings. Ladies and gentlemen, you're seeing the wonderfully informative chat. We call the towel chat a Tesseract towel chat. It is like a four-dimensional entity that exists on a 3D plane, leaving an imprint on your screen. The towel friends chat with me and give informative remarks. It's like a Socratic dialogue. The towel friends chat with each other and provide a warm, fluffy embrace in all moments during the trial and otherwise. They become friends with each other. It is wonderful. Not everyone gets along all the time, but that's just what a giant group of people is like. We still try to be nice to each other. Even the people sometimes who are FKR are very kind to the people who are like either anti-Karen Reed or pro-justice for John O'Keefe. They all comfort each other here. It is a glorious interconnected towel universe. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the towels are also existing within their own world and making their own comments. And so therefore it's a 4-dimensional towel tesseract chat which interacts on a 3D plane with the wider universe through the towel chat on the screen. Yes, that is my proof that the chat is a tesseract. I'm not really sure what that had to do with the wrap-up, but watch, you join us. It's hilarious sometimes on this stream, even though we discuss very difficult things. Moments of levity are important. My name's Grant Smith Ellis, youtube.com/@GrantSmithEllis, each and every day for coverage of the Karen Reed trial. I don't know exactly what time we're starting up tomorrow, but I'll be with you in the morning. Then I'll let the stream start up, and then I will pick up with you about 9. So basically, our plan tomorrow is 7:30 a.m. start. I'll let court start up either with a motion hearing. Maybe we start a little late, around 9:15 or so. I'll go to my towel doctor's appointment. I have had a lot of towel appointments this week and busy things to do. And then I'll come back with you about 10:30. But yeah, that's what happens when Towel's health is not going well and everything. But Towel is fighting, and your Towel support keeps me pushing through, ladies and gentlemen. Health, side effects or otherwise, I draw strength from the Towel friends. You can join us each and every day, and I'm going to end this recap now. So about 5:25, that will allow me to make a nice, clean clip.